No. All right. So, hope you're doing well today, everyone, including rat3de. We're going to be talking about. You wanted to discuss Grixis Delver and Rug Delver, right?
Yeah.
Can you show me the deck list you were playing specifically, and we can talk about it real quick?
Yep. I think it was this. Yeah, this was the original list.
All right. So, yeah, this is pretty standard for a Grixis Delver deck. 19 lands is a little bit on the low side nowadays, I think. Mostly because Brazen Borrower is a 3 drop, right? Like, it's obviously not as good as Oko, but um, I think hitting your third land's pretty important, so I would have tried to squeeze in a 13th land. And the other thing is, I think because of Arcanist, it's really hard for you to flood, right? Like, I think you're way more likely to get screwed than flood. I don't know if you actually experienced that when you played the games out. Um,
Um, I don't remember. This was a couple days ago, so we'll see. I think that's an interesting point, though. I mainly wanted to try Grixis because I've tried Rug in the past and could not do well with it at all. And then
mm-hmm,
I tried Death Shadow
mm-hmm.
Delver.
Yep.
It felt like a million times better. And I'm not sure if it was because it was more proactive with Thoughtseize or if I had improved as a player or whatever, because there had been a pretty significant amount of time that had passed between those. But I felt like Thoughtseize and Heim and Plague Engineer were really good, and Eliminate. I felt like those were cards
Mm.
that I liked in a Delver shell. Um, and I wanted to try it out with Arcanist because I know Arcanist is busted.
Yeah, Arcanist is I think probably one of the best tools that these sorts of blue red X Delver decks have gotten in the past year or two. Um, that is one knock for Shadow, I think, that you don't get to play something as busted as that at your 2 drop, right?
Yeah, but the thing is, you don't really want to be making many two drops with Shadow.
Yeah, I get that. I just think maybe it's too big of a sacrifice to play that deck for that reason, you know.
True.
Um, but yeah, I mean, besides that, I think this looks pretty normal. If you want to play this style of deck, I actually question if Spell Pierce is better than Force of Negation on average as well. Like, I've been experimenting with just playing 0 Spell Pierces and like 4 Fawns and 4 Force of Wells, and like people say you'll run out of cards, but I think if you like Fawn any removal spell on your Arcanist, you don't actually run out of cards. Um,
Yeah, I actually did not like Spell Pierce. After I played, I think the first league, I cut at least one for Chain Lightning.
So that actually makes sense because Spell Pierce doesn't play with Arcanus. And the other thing, you only have 18 lands. Remember that. So getting to a point where you can like Arcanus plus Spell Pierce, it's going to happen. Slightly less often. Like it's still going to happen, but not as often as you might imagine. As
Yeah,
opposed to if you were to playing 19 lands. Um,
yeah,
so I think this is why you generally see 19 lands. And you're citing in Plague Engineer, you're citing in Sulfuric Vortex, you're citing in Narset. Most of these Haymakers are 3 mana, right? So I think
definitely don't I'm not as experienced with Legacy in general, so I kind of
yeah.
just random haymakers for the sideboard.
Yeah, I mean those cards are all good. My least favorite of these cards that you currently have is probably Sulfuric Vortex. I don't think that card has aged very well. Um, I think specifically like Grixis versus Snow, a much better plan is to side in one Mystic Sanctuary and Painful Truths, which
Yeah,
is some old tech that H.J. Kaiser, known European stalwart of Delver, innovated. That guy's really good. He lives in China now, actually, and it's funny we haven't seen him on MTGO in a while, but I have to think he is still playing a lot of Magic because what else are you going to do during a pandemic, right?
yeah.
Um, But yeah, I would much rather see a Painful Truths and a Mystic Sanctuary than like Sulfuric Vortex in the sideboard of this sort of deck. That's just me personally. Obviously, there's a bunch of ways to play it. So with that, I think that besides those minor points, I think this is a totally reasonable way to build a deck. Um, I would be maybe afraid that you're maybe one or like so all of your creatures currently can be answered like one for one removal wise, right?
Right.
That's a slight problem because you don't have anything like Oko or like something that pops out a bunch of bodies, right? You don't have an army in a can. People used to play Young Pyromancer in Grixis for that reason. Um, Unfortunately, the card hasn't aged well, mostly due to like it's not very good in like Delver mirrors a lot of the time because it's so fragile and it doesn't size well. Like, imagine you play Pyromancer and they play Tarmogoyf. Like, that's just not good, right?
Yeah.
Um, so
I just,
I think
I
that
don't.
is why you don't see Pyromancer in Grixis anymore. And like, you have to play Brazen Borrower, but maybe there's a better option. I would think about it for a while, anyways.
I played Borrower not really as a threat and more as like threat plus interaction. I think if I wanted an actual threat, I would play something else for sure. I think
Yeah,
just Borrower being so versatile is what made me give it the slot rather than like it actually being a threat I like. I think it's more like interaction that can sometimes be a threat.
yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I don't know. Besides that, I think everything else is pretty reasonable. Um, yeah, Gurmag Angler being bigger than Hooting Mandrills is actually probably a big deal. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised if that came up for you once or twice.
I definitely smashed Rug Delver at least twice, mainly due to Angler.
Yeah, I sort of think that matchup depends on how many Tarmogoyfs they play, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I
And a lot
think
of the
that
lists cut down way, 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 way down, so I wouldn't be surprised if that got you an edge.
yeah, I think um I played against Misplaced Ginger twice,
Mm-hmm.
and I like Angler just like ended those games because they only had like you said, mandrills, and that's just not enough.
No, I would also guess their other big threat in the matchup is Oko, but honestly, I don't love Oko in the Delver Mirrors because it costs so much mana and
Yeah,
is like
and
pretty
Pyro
vulnerable to blast, and if you're not ahead on board, you can't really play it.
yeah.
So, all that being said, let's take a look at some of the games you played with either of these lists.
So I know everyone says that Grixis Over is like the combo killer, but that was actually what I struggled most with.
So,
So,
I think this was probably true. Like, so I don't like making statements like that. I think that was probably true when all the combo decks didn't play for main deck Veil. You know, I think that
yeah,
actually shifted the needle quite a bit, and that's why I actually don't love Grixis anymore. Like, I think the strength of Demir Shadow and like Grixis Delver are that when discard is good and you don't get veiled or whatever, then it's really good, right?
yeah. I I don't know. It was just I felt like combo actually felt pretty decent when I was on Shadow, but it didn't for some reason on this. And I think that also has to do with the clock difference.
Yeah, that's reasonable. Although, like, kind of, I mean, you're trading Shadow for Arcanist. I mean, Arcanist is a sort of clock, but it loads you up with more disruption. So I'm not convinced. It might have just been small sample size, honestly.
Yeah, I only played 2 leagues, but so
Yeah.
the first league, I think I went 4-1, which obviously hyped me up losing
Mm-hmm.
to Shadow. And then the second league, I went 1-4, losing to 4 combo decks, I think.
It's unfortunate, but let's take a look at the matches you want to take a look at.
Okay, I think this was blue, green, maybe white Omnitel. Oops. So I kept this hand because I didn't know what they were on. I had double Delver, and days.
I mean,
And
I'm not mulling in that hand ever. You would have to pry it from my dying hands.
yeah.
If you're gonna mull in that hand, you should be playing a different deck, I think.
Yeah. Whoa.
Yeah, you went a little bit fast.
Whoa.
So you dazed their astrolabe.
Yeah, because they fetched forest, so I assumed in my head I didn't think it was combo. I thought it was gonna be snow.
Yeah, that
And
is
I
more likely
drew.
to be snow. So I do agree with that for now. Yeah.
So which one of these three should I be pressing to?
So the middle one increments one by one.
Okay.
So you just click it like a few times. So you revealed Brainstorm, which is a decent draw, obviously.
Yeah.
So here, what are you thinking?
So I still don't know what they're on.
Yep.
So I think I played Delver because if they were snow, I just wanted to capitalize on hopefully mana screwing them.
Yeah,
Um,
and also if they're combo, you would rather have the Delver in play as well, I think. So I don't think it's particularly close. I would also play the Delver here. And if it works poorly, I mean whatever.
yeah,
I think you're just gonna win more games on average playing the second Delver there.
I think that makes sense. So then they played Island,
Okay.
and then Delver did not flip. And I drew a C, which I think is.
Okay, so that's actually pretty good. Did you not Thoughtseize pre-combat?
I don't think so.
So I think you're supposed to because that screams collateral to me, right?
Yeah, I realized that
Okay. Yep.
there because I think they did play Coatl, but because they only had two snow permanents, they had to block the 1/1 Delver.
Yeah, but the thing is, I would just Thoughtseize and not attack with the 1/1 Delver.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, yeah, that's a slight misstep. I hope it didn't cost you too much, but it's kind of a big deal here. I think that like actually shortens your clock by quite a bit.
Yeah, I think that definitely makes sense. And then I thought seize them.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty scripted play. And now the truth is shown, pun
Yeah.
intended.
So I think here I took Veil because I don't show and tell. I can hopefully deal with spell pierce and drawing some more interaction. Cunning Wish doesn't really matter to fairy. Like I can either counter or attack down, depending on how things go.
So I kind of hate taking Veil here, and let me explain why. I think the Veil is only important if you allowed them to put something threatening on the stack. So I think personally I would take Show and Tell because the 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 limiting factor of that deck is the number of Show and Tells they have. They only have four. Everything else is like basically replaceable.
Right.
So by taking Veil, you don't even force them to find another Show and Tell. You just force them to find either Veil or another Show and Tell. Whereas if you take Show and Tell, it forces them to find only more Show and Tells, really. And they still need another payoff. Like currently Show and Tell by itself doesn't do anything. But if you take Show and Tell, they have to like find Show and Tell plus Omni or Show and Tell plus Gristle or Show and Tell plus Emrakul. So I think for all of those reasons, I would personally take Show and Tell.
That makes a lot of sense. I think I just kind of got afraid.
Yeah. To be fair, if okay, let me give an example that's not related to this. If they were Rug Sneak and Show, like if you saw a Sneak Attack and a Show and Tell in their hand, then yeah, for sure I would just take the Veil, or I would consider if my hand looked slightly different, taking the Show and Tell and hoping to draw another Thoughtseize for Sneak Attack. But then you get veiled later, so it's kind of awkward. But since the hand looked like that, I think you should take Show and Tell. I know JPA has experimented with Rogue Sneak and Show in the past, so that's something you might play against occasionally.
All right.
So I assume your opponent just plays Teferi here.
Yeah, and I think they actually had a force. I think I
Uh,
pierced and they forced.
I mean,
Yeah,
this is great for them. I mean, they're pitching that Cunning Wish probably.
yeah. And then they like said they bounce my Delver and draw a card, which is
Yeah,
really,
it's
really good
yeah.
against me.
Well, the Teferi and I mean, you could make a case for taking the Teferi. I just think taking Veil is the worst option right there. So now you're that's actually fine.
So here I was obviously supposed to take show and tell again, right?
Yeah.
And then I don't know if I did. I did.
Okay. Yeah, that time I don't think there's even any contest. Like what yeah,
Yeah,
and now you just play the Delver and hope to flip. You can't brainstorm during your upkeep this time, unfortunately.
yeah.
I think if you could, there's a very real chance you would want to. Because it guarantees killing the Teferi, or like makes it pretty likely. But obviously you can't.
Yeah. But I didn't flip it, sadly. Drew fetch, which is like fine, I guess,
Yeah.
because makes the brainstorm better. Drew bolt, which is pretty good. Obviously, they only have one unknown in hand, so I think I just bolted and then attacked them.
So do you remember how you stacked that brainstorm?
I think I put Arcanist on top because I wanted to draw. I think I put Arcanist on top so that I could shuffle away if Teferi somehow didn't die, and then if I could draw it as soon as possible if Teferi did die.
So I think what you're actually supposed to do is put Daze on top, keep the Arcanist in your hand, and play the fetch. And let me explain why. I don't think Daze is going to do anything in this game.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, they are at a point where, like, if they want to play Veil plus Show and Tell, like their mana is kind of that's like a lot of mana. But I
Well,
think also like that's kind of far away, and I need to focus on like rebuilding maybe at this point.
also if you Daze the Veil, don't they just play the show and tell anyways? Like because you're probably not going to have a second Daze or a third Daze. I basically think Daze is valueless here, essentially, from my point of view.
Sorry. Um, where did? Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think the screen just disappeared for me.
It might be on a different screen, or you might have to reopen the replay.
There we go. Um,
You might have to drag it over to whatever screen you're actually on if you have multiple
oh,
monitors.
can you no longer see it?
I can no longer see it.
Because I can still see it. I'm gonna there. Can you see it now?
Yes, but the resolution's sort of messed up. This is fine. We'll figure it out for the next replay. Anyways, back to my point is I think it being able to shuffle away that daze and draw a fresh new card while flipping your Delver still seems really really powerful to me.
That makes sense.
And
Yeah,
I think I would lead with the lightning bolt on the Teferi, see if it resolves. If it doesn't resolve, then you attack with the Delver. If it does resolve, then you can just attack them.
yeah.
So let's see if you did that. Yeah, it looks like you did that.
They cycled Veil, which I don't know. I think that's kind of a weak play,
Yeah, I'm not
but
sure about that.
so here they just draw the show and tell and omniscience, I think, or Grizzlebrand.
Well, anything's bad for you. Okay, and their last card's Cunning Wish.
No, it was Emrakul.
Oh, they pitched the Cunning Wish to Forcible, didn't they?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So here,
Obviously, you're dead. I mean,
yeah. At this point, I was like, did I like play badly? Like, what did I do wrong? Like, I
well,
don't know.
so you made a few small missteps, but I kind of well, actually, if you thought seize the show and tell the first time,
They would have two veils at one point.
yeah, I'm
I
not
think
sure. I think the
end.
game becomes different. I'm not sure what's actually going to happen, but I think you probably still would have lost based on how they drew. But
Yeah,
there were things you could have done to optimize, in case they didn't draw like this for a turn or two, right?
yeah. Definitely be at a lower life total if I had thought seized that Coatl.
Well,
Like a
you never get to thought seize it. I think they
oh
just play it
yeah,
every time, but
if
that
I had the pack.
yeah. Um. So let's exit out and see if the next. Did your resolution change? It looks like that might be what happened. Okay, yeah,
Uh,
this is better now. All
okay,
right. So did
so
you want to discuss game two?
yeah,
All right, and also before that, let's well, okay, right click view sideboard. Let's see how you sideboarded. I see. So you have two bolts, a bunch of blasts, Narsets, and what else did you side in? Two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine. So you sided in 9 cards.
I think two blasts, a fluster,
Okay.
um, two Narsets, and then there must have been one, two, three. There must have been at least one other thing, but I don't
Well,
quite remember.
so kind of interesting you would sideboard like this. Some of the lists have Boseiju. By cutting Wasteland, you're really exposed to Boseiju.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Um, Hello?
Yeah. You sort of went out for a second. The window disappeared.
Oh, is it back up now?
Yeah, the sizing is wrong again. Try maximizing it. No, just close it out and reopen the game. They'll probably fix it. Yeah, all right, that fixed it. All right, so I think this is reasonable. I'm just saying that I think maybe you don't want to cut all of your wastelands. I think you might want to like leave in two, because there's also games where they just draw a tropical island, and you sort of get them.
Yeah,
Um, think my instinct would be to have 0 bolts in essentially.
I think that makes sense. I think I wanted to keep in one or two for a Teferi or Oko, or not Oko, or Coatl. And I think the other card we don't know if I said that we were wondering about is Eliminate. I probably cited in for Teferi and Coatl again, and maybe Oko if they had it. Because I assume they have Oko or something if they're
I
playing green.
mm, I don't think Omnitel generally plays Oko because I don't think you have space for it. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
Obviously they could play it. It's not out of the question, but I think Teferi is a reasonable answer, and eliminate killing Teferi queenly, even if it plus or Coatl is fine. So All right, let's take a look at what's going on. Whoa. Oh, you also cited in surgical. Yeah, I like that a lot more when you have Thoughtseize in your deck because if you ever surgical show and tell, their deck really, really, really becomes non-functional.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I thought seize them turn one. I kept a hand, I think,
it's
with
a
eliminate, force, bulk, surgical, strand, thought seize. Um,
yeah. This is sort of the danger of too many reactive cards, I guess, is how I'd put it. I mean, like, we don't know if any of those would have been borrowers, I guess. Um,
right.
I guess I would probably keep as well and just be slightly unhappy. Let's see what you draw. Hopefully you draw a cantrip or something.
And then I thought seize them and saw like mono land hand.
Yeah, and you took the collateral and left them with Astrolabe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's definitely correct. Yeah, just hit the middle button a few times. All right, land's
So
not
I drew
great.
land, and then I wanted to keep it for like if there's something I need to shuffle away, so I played the bulk.
Yep,
And then I draw Arcanist, which
that's not bad. I mean, at least that's something.
yeah, and then hope to draw like a cantrip next turn or something.
Yeah, a cantrip
Brain,
or Thoughtseize would be pretty good. Brainstorm is pretty terrifying there, but there's obviously nothing you can do.
yeah,
That's basically an ancestral recall right there.
yeah, it's very strong.
Yeah, there was a point where you could play four brainstorms in vintage. It was not. Mm, I think combo was not even that good back then, but it just meant all of the blue control decks were great.
Well, wasn't it banned because of Flash Hulks? Wasn't that
Yeah,
around?
that was sort of a. I mean, I think brainstorm was supposed to be restricted way before that, probably if you had to guess. But it Flash Hulk what did do it in.
Yeah, drawing both eliminates is a little.
Yeah, I mean, I think you would be better off if one of those was a brazen borrower, but it's not even like a slam dunk.
Well, like, would you want Borrower there as a threat
Yeah,
or
it's not great. I will agree it's not great. It's just having another blue card is
that's true.
kind of not zero.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. And then I draw another Thoughtseize.
All right, so I wonder how you play this out. Personally, I'm afraid of getting veiled here, so I would probably just lead with an attack, and if they veil, probably just have to fawn the veil.
I think that's what I think I attacked first,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
But
think
I
that.
don't
Yeah,
I
that
think they did fail me, but I don't think I've force of negation it.
I think you should actually.
We'll see. I can't remember. So they did veil. I guess I did force of negation it.
Yeah, I think you're sort of priced into it because if you don't force them negation that, they'll just get a 2-for-1 off of you. Oh, I
Right,
mean,
and then
a
I
one
was
for zero, or what, however you want to count it.
yeah, I think I was also thinking if I hit show and tell here, that's like
Exactly. Yeah,
insanely
yeah,
surgical.
yeah.
So then they have Eureka and Shifting Ceratops. And I was
Okay.
like, crap.
Yeah, they sometimes play that card. I think you actually have to. Hmm. This is awkward. You actually have to take the Eureka, I think, and just hope to deal with the Ceratops with two bolts or by blocking it with an Angler.
I think I took Ceratops just to like pretend I have an answer to the Eureka because they have three lands in play, one in hand. Hope they don't jam and then draw something. And I think they ended up actually not playing into the days that I obviously didn't have.
Yeah, that's reasonable, but I think if someone were less. I mean, like, that's a really high variance play that you're making, I think.
Yeah, I
Uh,
don't really. I think either way,
you're sort of flipping coins either way, I think, is what you're saying, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I would personally take the Eureka, but I understand your line. I don't think yours is indefensible. I think I would actually try to figure out what type of player my opponent was and make a play based on that. This is definitely one of those moments IRL where you just look them in the face and decide what to do.
Yeah.
So I think your play is reasonable. So let's just keep going.
So yeah, I took Ceratops, and then they just didn't jam, and then I didn't draw anything, and then I lost.
Well, no, you Thoughtseize them, right?
Yeah, but I think they veiled again or something.
That's an oof.
I don't know. Let's see.
They probably wish for Veil then, right?
They might wish for veil right here. No, they just
Oh,
naturally drew
yeah,
the
that's
veil.
really bad for you, obviously. But
Yeah.
ironically, if you if your force of negation had been something I did in Exile, you could have surgical first. But oh, I hate this. I don't think I would have done that.
Yeah, I think I was just like they're probably gonna jam Eureka, and then I want to be able to spell pierce that without them being able to defend it.
But can't they just like wish for like a force of will or some or like I don't know how their deck is built actually. Actually, I guess they can't wish because they need that as their payoff card.
Yeah,
Um,
they need it to kill me with omniscience.
yeah, I don't think I would burn the surgical this way. I think I would save it essentially. I'm not sure for what, but um,
Yeah, I was thinking that like obviously saving it is better, but I don't think there's really much I can save it for at this point because I think they're probably gonna jam, and then I see they have the show and tell, which
so like counterpoint is what if you just don't surgical, they jam, you spell pierce, you untap, thought sees their other thing, and then surgical their show and tells.
right, but they ended up jamming show and tell, I think. Like I
Yeah,
don't see,
you have a thought seize in your yard for Arcanus next turn. Do you see what I'm saying?
yeah, but I already died, right?
No, no, because okay, they go to their turn, they cast show and tell, you spell pierce it, unless if they have a fifth land.
I think they hit the fifth land.
Okay, then that's the different story. Sure. If that happens, you're gonna lose. Yeah, I agree with that. But I don't think that doesn't mean casting. You shouldn't. Actually, you should. I mean, yeah, you still shouldn't surgical. I think because in the points where they don't draw a fifth land, you get to spell pierce and untap. Thoughtseize or Eureka surgical with their show and tells. Then their deck is like kind of neutered, right?
Yeah.
So I think that was a mistake. Um, Obviously, if they
I,
draw the fifth land, you're gonna die. That's no good beats, right?
yeah. And then I attack and
Yeah, not doing anything is correct. All right. Well, I mean, sometimes they draw the land. Sometimes they draw the second show and tell. So I basically think those games showed the power of Veil of Summer versus Grixis, right? Like very very clearly, the games were defined by Veil of Summer, right?
definitely. And then yeah, I think this was just
Yeah, you were hoping that they didn't fetch or something, right?
yeah.
Which is fine. I mean, and then make them show you. But I assume they knew how to kill you with their deck. Hello?
Sorry. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
All right. Okay. Well, that wasn't not that interesting, unfortunately. I mean, there were things you could have optimized on, and it's good that you know about them now. But frankly, I think that matchup is not great because of Veil, as you saw. Um, was there another match you wanted to go over with the Grixis deck?
Yeah, I need to get the next match. Um, so I think this was either another blue green Omnitel deck or Tess.
All right. Well, let's. I mean, game one you don't know, so you're basically keeping more hands, blind, right?
Yeah. So this, I
Yeah.
think, yeah, triple cantrip and a thought seize.
Oh
I
yeah.
think that's a key.
I would never mulligan, and I would actually lead on Thoughtseize, I think. Um, so the reason to lead on Thoughtseize is you know what you want to cantrip for, right?
Right. I think that's what I did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then I see they're
Okay.
on Tess.
Um,
I think I took Veil, which I right away realized was a mistake.
I think you should consider Ritual or Wishclaw, actually. Um,
Yeah,
I'm
I
I'm
think
definitely
that.
not taking Brainstorm, and it's kind of awkward because you don't know where their hand is going. But my instinct would be to take Wishclaw, actually.
Yeah, I think that's the conclusion I came to like right after. I was like, why did I do that? That we should call like the obviously Veil is good, but like it does like we were talking about with show and tell, like it does nothing without action.
Yeah. So again, this is a situation where you have to think about, okay, what does their deck actually do? What are the limiting factors? I think the limiting factor for Tess is a gas card. That's four talisman, four burning wish, ad nauseum, echo vions, right?
Yeah,
Um, obviously, the fact of the matter is their hand's great. Like so, I mean, you just have to. I think taking wish call probably leads slightly more wins on average, but it's between Witchclaw and Dark Ritual for me personally.
yeah, but yeah, I took the Veil, which definitely I realized was a mistake.
So the other reason I hate taking the veil is your hand doesn't even like care about it currently. I mean, it might later, but that's so far down the road.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then they drew
Ooh,
Chromok.
that's really good. I wonder if they jam the Witchclaw. No,
They
they just.
did.
Oh, this makes sense. This
Oh
makes
wait, no,
sense.
no, they played Brainstorm, yeah,
Yeah, of
and then I
course, this
think
makes sense because if you want to fetch, like trying to turn one you or something, then this is the way you would do it, right?
yeah,
Oh, so are they just going all in? I mean, nope, they didn't.
yeah,
Okay.
I think they. So I then drew another
Wow,
thought
that's a
piece.
really good draw. I think you should actually
Yeah,
brainstorm first before you do anything, and I hope you do. The reason to brainstorm first is if you draw a force or something, then you know better what you want to thoughtseize.
I think I pondered because I knew I wanted a force, and that got me more looks.
Mm, technically, if you want to shuffle, yeah, that's true. Okay, that's reasonable as well.
Sorry, there's a lot of noise outside. I feel I'm kind of like switching between outside and inside based on where other people in my family are. Um, so let's see what I did.
The window's gone, by the way.
Oh, is it sized appropriately and stuff?
No, but that's okay. Like we can see enough. All right. So you pondered. Let's see what you ponder into.
I think I actually maybe thought seized first. Oh wait, no, I did ponder.
Okay.
So
Another Thoughtseize is actually pretty good, I think. Well,
yeah, I think I
only
drew.
actually, let's think about it closely. What does another Thoughtseize do? Doesn't actually do anything, I think. So let me tell you why I think it doesn't actually do anything. If they have hmm, it's kind of complicated. It depends on where you think the Wish Claw is, right?
I think I yeah, I didn't really think about where Wishclaw was. I think I was just thinking like I hope I don't die next turn, or and so I took the Thoughtseize and shuffled the other two away.
So what I'm actually thinking now is uh the second Thoughtseize doesn't do anything, the first one doesn't, because if the Wish Claw is in their hand, then you get it. If it's not in their hand, then you actually need to protect yourself from it being drawn, right?
That yeah,
So
that makes
like yeah, actually thinking about it, I think you actually just have to shuffle looking for a force.
that makes a lot of sense. And then I thought seized, and then they had it on top. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yep, that's smart.
And so here I actually uh, ended up taking the wrong card. Surprisingly, I'm pretty sure. I
How did you take Rite of Flame?
think so.
How I mean, one of these makes two mana, the other one makes one. It's kind of
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a big deal, honestly. I mean, it will cost you a small amount of equity, but it's not as large as people might lead you to
No, I
believe
did.
because okay,
I did
well,
take.
yeah, that's fine
Why
then.
did I feel like maybe it was game two that I made a mistake.
Okay, well, obviously taking Dark Ritual is correct there. Although, like this is exactly what I meant about the Thoughtseize. The second Thoughtseize doesn't do anything, the first one doesn't, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So now I just.
Yeah,
I
now
don't
they're probably just going for Echo of Eons.
I don't think they even did. I think they waited a turn. Yeah.
Oh, that's real weird. So now I would just brainstorm looking for a force and play the Arcanist probably.
So I pondered first. Itch. How do you feel about that?
These cards don't do anything, right? Like it's easy to tell they have 6 mana, seven
Yeah.
with the Rite of Flame. It's one to activate Witch Claw, so they have six, so they can add Nas past the days, right?
Yeah, but how do you feel about pondering before the brainstorm?
Um, Here I kind of feel like the Thoughtseize doesn't do anything, so I think you have like essentially two dead cards. Like the Thoughtseize and the second cantrip, I don't want to particularly be casting, so I would have cast Brainstorm, and yeah, that's not great. Then I would just put back two of those cards and fetch, and then cast the Ponder. The I mean, so the thing is, Ponder when you don't have a fetch is better. Brainstorm when you do have a fetch is better. Obviously, this is not a hard and fast rule, but yeah, I would have personally brainstormed.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I actually ended up realizing after, but I think I did take the days, but then for some reason didn't thought seize the right of flame.
Yeah, so that's
Maybe
an
because
error because they have exactly enough to Wish Claw
right,
for Ad Naus and cast it through a daze if you leave them with the Rite of Flame.
right. I think that was my mistake. Oh, I guess I shuffled.
So now that you shuffled, you should just waste and Thoughtseize, I think. The other thing you could do is hope to brainstorm into blue card plus force, but I think that's optimistic because you still have a ton of lands left in your deck and not that many forces. Like you only have six, right? So I think if you work out the math, it's not great odds to do that. So I would just waste plus Thoughtseize.
Yeah, I think I brainstormed though,
Mm.
which obviously not great.
And the downside to brainstorming there is if you need to wasteland, then and you draw badly off the brainstorm, then you're brainstorm locked, right?
Yeah.
So
and then I thought seized again.
Yeah, and now you just have to hope that they play around days for a turn. But you know your top card's bad too, so
Well, they
it's
can also
like,
get Echo.
yeah, if
Which,
they get Echo, it's better for you.
yeah.
So one, two, three, four, five, six, seven.
So here I just died. There was nothing I. Yeah.
Yeah, there you were
They
super
actually
dead.
went. They went really low too. I think they were like at. I don't know. They just.
They were showboating, I think, right? Well, no, maybe they weren't.
I think they didn't need to go as low as they did because
Well,
they had drawn tendrils and then decided to keep going
well,
with them.
so they know that they're so once you reveal the tendrils, you know the highest CMC cost in your deck is two.
Uh, oh, they had already
Yeah, they already
revealed.
revealed Echo, so that's why they knew they were safe.
That's true. That makes sense. All right, and then game two, I think I made a really big punt just by like not really knowing the deck super well.
Right.
So I think I keep this and pass hold up fluster.
I think that's cowardly. Personally, I would just play the Ponder because I want to look for Thoughtseize or Force. And plus, you want the cantrip in your yard for a cast on two if you want to tap out for it.
That I don't know. Maybe like just coming from like vintage
You're
that
coming from vintage for sure there.
yeah,
I
it
think
just feels like
that's
really aggressive.
I play. I mean, so well, let me put it a different way. Who do you think is going to win if the game goes long? Personally, I think it's Test by a lot, right?
I would have assumed the opposite.
I no, I think so. What happens is all of your soft counters become really bad. Then you only have like 6 points of interaction, but they're shut off by Defense Grid or Veil of Summer. So I think generally you actually have to be the aggressor, is what I'm saying. And I carry that philosophy when I play this deck versus combo generally. I just assume if you give them enough time, they'll find like enough veils or defense grids or things that are super annoying. You don't have infinite answers, is the problem.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I would have probably pondered. But I do understand your philosophy. I just don't think it's correct.
And then in terms of sideboarding, I think I brought in one engineer and one Narset.
Okay, let me tell you a secret. I think the bolt plan versus all of these decks is super overrated. Is Lava Spike a
Yeah.
good card versus them?
No, no, no,
No,
it's not.
right? So like, why would you want Lava Spike in your deck then?
Yeah. I don't know. I think I was just thinking like I wanted to get lucky.
No, so I think that's a good plan in game one because you can steal games that way. And then game two, I just want to make sure all my cards are live. Like, so I would have the Narset and Preordain in instead of the last two bolts personally.
Right. That makes sense.
I think it's fine to have an engineer, but keep in mind, I think most opponents will just not go for empty versus you most of the time unless it's their very last option.
That makes
They
sense.
don't even have it main deck anymore, is how you can tell that that's really like their fourth or fifth plan.
Yeah. So yeah, here I just play fetch pass. And then they play Rite of Flame. And
I,
I do not fluster it.
I would also not fluster it. I think you can get more value.
And then they play Defense Grid and I die.
Oh, that sucks. But I mean, you know, it's whatever.
I mean, is it
Oh,
just
they literally had to turn one? Okay,
yeah,
well, that sucks. I mean, okay, they mold to six. I mean, they won and mold to seven, put one on the bottom, and killed you in turn one with Red Flame into grid into led into Echo. I think that's super unlikely. Like, I wouldn't worry about that. Like, you got
but
like probably like 1% or 2% or whatever the exact number is.
but when you think of the deck, like in terms of what will it do on turn one off of a Rite of Flame, I think I actually was supposed to fluster it because there really isn't anything scary that they can do without another ritual. And if they have another ritual, then I can just wait.
Well, so you're actually making a case for waiting then, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So the specifically the sequence that happened to you is actually extremely unlikely. I do agree most of the time they have to cast another ritual or like a burning wish or something to kill you, but it being defense grid into lead into echo is a very specific sequence that punishes you.
yeah,
I think I would hold the fluster and get killed the same way you did, and I believe it is actually extremely correct.
okay.
And sometimes their deck does that. I mean, they're you should re-maximize the screen. Yeah, it did go goofy, and sometimes that happens. Good beats.
Yeah, that definitely felt bad. And then this, I believe, is another blue-green show and tone.
You're certainly getting your practice in versus deck.
Oops.
Oh, great hand. I mean, obviously not. I mean, if you change that bolt to a force, it would actually be the nuts in this matchup. But you're never mulling this hand again.
Yeah. How do you feel like in terms of fetching, always fetching like Volk first?
Okay, so let me tell you, you're actually supposed to fetch C first most of the time, and that's for the cases where your opponent's playing creature deck and you need to ponder into removal a lot of the time. Here, you already have the bolt, so you can get a Volk. But if you didn't have the bolt, you're actually supposed to fetch C.
Okay. Because I would have just assumed I'm supposed to fetch Volk to bluff Rug or blue-red, since those are much higher.
No,
Like,
but if you actually need to cantrip into a bolt on turn two, you're supposed to fetch C first. So that's the counterpoint.
it makes sense.
That's like some ancient. I don't remember when I learned that lesson. It was probably a while ago. Probably I don't know, like 2010, maybe earlier than that. Holy cow, the years have
I
gone
was
by.
like, I was very young.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, Magic has been around a long time.
I drew Volk, which kind of sucks. And then I think I pondered and then Delver.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting which way you're supposed to play your lands and which way you're supposed to ponder. I think I would ponder first in case if there's like exactly one good card. Okay, so you went the other way. What this does is it guarantees, or doesn't guarantee, it means your Delvers are more likely to flip. Huh.
Uh,
I guess you have to keep and hope you don't get killed by some nonsense.
yeah,
I think that's the only logical conclusion. Like, if you do anything else, I think that's not great because then what? Like, yeah, I think that's correct. All right.
yeah. I mean, obviously, like this having this aggressive of a start is really good against combo normally, but
You do need to
yeah.
find something. Daze is pretty good here,
So I think I took the days
and played
and
your
then
fetch, and then
got
pondered again.
one. Yeah,
Obviously, you should. Oh, okay. So you didn't play your fetch and pondered again before attacking. I
yeah. I think
see.
I just wanted to hold the days in case of Quaddle.
Yeah, and if they have to play Coddle here, you get to waste them. So that is probably correct. Yeah.
I didn't even think of that. That was just yeah,
You should have pondered off the Volk.
yeah. I realized that.
Yeah, the max punishment. Although taking the force isn't bad. So,
Yeah, I think I drew Force,
yep,
and then I don't know if I took Thoughtseize or Arcanist after. I think I took Thoughtseize since I already have double threat.
I agree with that because they're dead. Like, assume they're going to fetch, right? They're going to be
Yeah,
dead in two, so the Arcanist actually doesn't matter, right?
yeah. So yeah, that's what I did.
So I think you should win this game. Like, your hand is, if they truly are Omnitel, this is like pretty good for you.
think they played Coatl here,
And yeah, I would not daze it ever.
and then what happens here? They play City of Traders,
Okay,
and
that
then
sucks.
go into with Bill backup, I think.
Told you, Vale really did like.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, I mean, they had the nuts. They didn't even cast a
Well,
cantrip, right? Like,
yeah. If I had the Thoughtseize, though, how would it be different?
you could thought
I guess
seize
I
one of
wouldn't have
their
had the
like.
four.
A lot of the time, they have exactly one of each card, right?
Yeah, if I had taken the Thoughtseize, I wouldn't have had the Force, so I guess it's the same.
Well, you could. Well, then they couldn't play Coatl. It's possible that they needed both draws to go through. So I'm not sure. But also, if you, hmm,
That's true.
I don't know. I think it's hard to say what exactly would have happened, but I think not taking the Thoughtseize did cost you a small amount, if not a large amount.
Yeah.
All right, let's see how you sideboard this time. So this time you did not side out the Wastelands.
Yeah, because why didn't I? I think just the way they fetched. Oh, because I saw City of Traders.
Yeah.
So I assumed
Uh,
they were like a more aggro list with like ancient tombs and stuff.
well, so if you look at the Blue Green Omni list, I think they only have two Soul Lands and it's two cities and four drops, and they sometimes have a Boseiju in their sideboard. So they're really trading it around actually. Like the Bant and Omni and Blue Green Omni Tail deck probably have the same number of Wasteland targets, and I just would never cut them versus them. Like period, personally. I think it's
Makes
just
sense.
way
I
too
don't know why
important
they.
in the games where they accidentally draw too many dual lands or soul lands or whatever, and you get them. And also here, like I don't love the bolts again. I think I would have the preordain and surgical in my deck instead, on the off chance you get to surgical show and tell.
Yeah, I don't know why I only brought in. Wait, how do you feel about bringing in both surgicals versus only one?
I like it when you have discard in your deck a lot more actually.
Bringing in both?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I think like it's kind of easy for. I mean, obviously this is like unlucky, but like you just thought sees them a bunch and then they top deck it. But like I think it's not super often that you actually have a good surgical target because if you're taking the show and tell, like you're kind of already ahead in a sense, in that like you took their namesake card,
So
right?
the other thing I often do with surgical is I use it as peak in a key counter war.
Right.
I don't have a clearly defined plan for the card. I wait for the game to develop and then use it like tactically, if that makes sense. It's very context driven, not strategic. But I mean, one thing that is strategic that is if you do get to surgical with the show and tell, their strategy almost completely collapses. I think they
Yeah.
can't beat you. Like it's really hard for them to beat you. Obviously they
Yeah.
can,
That's how this game went down. I
but
think. I
see, you
think
have
this.
the surgical.
Yeah.
And like a lot of the times they have to jam a show into your counter and just hope to rejam, then that's really when you get them as well, right?
Yeah. So I think this hand is a pretty easy keep because I have Delver plus Days plus
Mm-hmm.
like other good cards.
Yeah, great hand. I mean, would never mulligan.
And then I got Volk because I
Yeah.
know I have the Arcanist and I want to be able to play that turn two.
Other reason is if you brainstorm looking for Thoughtseize, you'll want to fetch Underground Sea next. It's
Okay.
really just a matter of figuring out what is going to matter next turn, right?
Yeah.
So, do you know what they did with the Preordain, or is it like not possible to tell?
It says that my game logs popped out, but like it's
Yeah.
clearly not. So
Yeah, it's weird. The game log is buggy in the replay, so whatever. Don't worry about it.
okay.
I mean, it doesn't actually affect your decision that much here. I think if they bottom, it's a sign of weakness. Oh, look, there's the Thoughtseize. It's a good thing you
Yeah.
fetched Vulcan turn one,
Yeah, that was definitely a little annoying. But I think I brainstormed
and
into,
a Black Source probably.
yeah. And then I was very happy because I think I hit show and tell.
Oh, and
And
then
then,
you won the game on the spot, pretty much.
yeah. So
Wow. Wait, you should have put back. Wait, no, this is fine. No, right. I just missaw something. This is fine.
they forced, I think I
I
dazed.
would absolutely daze. This is like whenever you get to daze of force, it probably means it's correct to do so.
Yeah.
Like
And then
that's a general heuristic. Obviously it's not 100%. Oh, so here you take it.
I
Uh
surgically make a
you should
speed.
just surgical right away, right? Is that what you did?
Yeah.
Okay, good. A lot of
Yeah.
people would wait until draw step and I'm like, what's even the point? If you actually KO their
There-
show and tells, it's
There's a
so hard
chance
for
they
them to
draw
win.
force.
Yeah, like what if they just draw forcible off the top if you wait? Then it's like so much worse for you, right?
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
they conceded before I could even resolve it, like finish resolving it.
That's not surprising. Like the way this matchup operates, it's really hard for them to beat you. The way they would beat you is to resolve multiple carpet of flowers, but as long as you don't play past like two lands, that plan doesn't even work that well.
Yeah. How do you feel about forcing carpet of flowers in general?
Depends on my hand. That's like again, I don't play it strategically. I play it tactically. If it's like my only forceful, I probably will just let it go and hope that they're light on action because at the end of the day, carpet of flowers is just a mana source, right? It's like
Yeah.
a really good mana source, but it doesn't mean you always have to force it.
I mean, it does blank a lot of your soft
I
counters,
I
though.
agree, but then I just start saving those for my forces and force of negations instead. You know,
Yeah.
that's why I say I play it tactically, and I don't set a hard and fast rule because I think that's a mistake. Really good hand.
Yep.
This is
Double
close to the
force.
nuts. Like if they play a carpet here, I would not even force it. I think right.
Yeah, I don't. I think they played carpet turn two, maybe. I don't remember if it was this. And then I drew another force, which very good.
I'm surprised you lost this game.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what I did
Your
wrong.
hand's really strong for the matchup right now. Like this is like top 2% of hands or whatever, you know.
So I think I'd let that go.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's only producing one, and like maybe you can just have it produce one for most of the game, right?
And like my hand is full of hard counters right now.
I
So
agree exactly. So like, what's the point of forcing that? Like, if you force that, what that does is it opens up them drawing enough gas to actually beat you. Whereas if you just leave them with the mana, maybe you get to choke them on action, right?
and then they played a Sylvan Library.
That one's closer.
I think I let it resolve
I think I
because
would
I was
also let it resolve because I think you're going to be able to attack them fast enough that they're not going to be able to get that many cards out of it.
right. That was what I was thinking, but I don't think it actually worked. Oh yeah, Delver didn't flip. I hit.
Wait, why is
Oh,
that in your deck?
I think because I was afraid of Bottle.
I
Like,
would. Okay, I think that should not be in your deck.
yeah,
If that was a surgical, I think you'd be slightly better off, actually.
yeah,
Or
I
like a
think
preordain, you would also be better off, frankly.
that makes sense.
Okay, so this is actually pretty good. I think
I think I drew Narset because that was the card I wanted.
agreed. That's what I would do. The question is, how else do you play this? Okay, I've decided what I would do. I would draw Narset, then I would preordain, leaving both on top, and draw the C, and just play the C, or just
I would have to draw seed
yeah,
then.
no. Yeah, what I said it makes sense. Just leave the brainstorm on top of your deck so you can flip the Delver.
Yeah, I think I was stupid and put C on top and drew the Narset. Yeah,
Yeah, that actually probably cost you, I
and then I
think.
think I cleared in, I guess.
Yep, but the problem is the third land is good, right? And now
Yeah,
you okay, well this worked out um kind of luckily so, right?
yeah, that was definitely like, yeah, that was definitely not played very tight.
Yep. They didn't even pay for life here, so the Sylvan Library was basically just a Mirror's Guile, which is not like terribly scary.
I mean, it's like almost a free ponder in a sense.
I
Like, obviously,
mean, I guess you're too young for this. No one plays Mirror's Guile for a reason.
I mean, I've actually registered that card and
Oh,
fish.
why would you do that to yourself?
I've done some jank and vintage.
Yeah, that card's not even legacy playable. All right, so you're priced into forcing. You're
Yeah.
actually supposed to force a negation, by the way, because of Mystic Sanctuary.
Oh, I actually wanted to force of will in case of surgical.
Yeah, but you only have one surgical in your deck, right? And they can always fetch Mystic Sanctuary if they want to.
Right.
And
Right.
also, if you, I mean, I guess it's kind of close to be fair, but wait, so that worked?
Yeah. And then Delver flipped, and then I played Narset.
Delver didn't flip.
Wait, I thought I had put the brainstorm on top.
Did you
I guess
bottom both?
I should have almost. I mean,
It looks like you bottomed the brainstorm,
yeah,
which is a mistake.
yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, now you have to play Narset, I think. I hope you do.
Yeah, I definitely do. And then I resolves. I draw brainstorm, which
Okay. So this is okay. Actually, like the Sylvan doesn't even matter versus an Narset, right? So I don't.
yeah,
I mean, like, so they got one
but
activation off of it. I mean,
I didn't know that when
well, you were
when
sort of going to know that, right? Because you knew it was
well,
coming.
I don't think I did at the time.
Okay, that's fair.
I think it was the turn after that I pondered into it.
Oh, sure, they were in the play. It was on their turn too, where they played Carpet Sylvan, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so here they show until I think I have Force of Negation, and then they have Veil plus, or they have Fluster.
Okay. Well, it's gonna be hard to beat. I don't actually think the Sylvan mattered personally.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, obviously they only cantrip like what twice, three times.
For
Actually,
what's
that's
worth, if that Plague Engineer was surgical, you
yeah,
would have probably very easily won this game.
that is very true.
I mean, not to say that that would have been how things played out, but instead, um, I just don't think trying to engineer to cut off collaterals actually is a game-winning line. Like, I think if you're paying 3 mana for stuff, it has to be way better than Plague Engineer in this matchup.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So, yeah, that was unfortunate.
Yep.
Obviously, like I made some mistakes there, but I didn't actually, especially with the bottoming brainstorm, I didn't actually get punished that badly. But
It costs you
then,
some damage. It costs you 2 damage at least, maybe four. I don't remember how many turns that was. Um, the Plague Engineer versus Surgical thing was definitely costly, though. Like,
yeah,
that's the difference between winning and losing the match.
I think we're almost up with time.
It's been 1 hour.
Yeah, I I'm just like curious what if you've noticed like a pattern with my mistakes. I'd say definitely sideboarding.
Yes, I think sideboarding is your weakest area. And maybe we should just go over that. Or what we could do is I kind of think you should practice more Rug Delver, but obviously we don't have time to go through new matches of that or whatever. Um,
I think I can probably play one match right now.
well, let's look at what list you have built because I have a lot of opinions on how the deck should be built, mostly due to how I play the deck as well. This is a 14 card sideboard. First off, I would not recommend that.
I think it's because I don't have Rough Tumble.
I would not play that card actually. So the way I would build this deck is I also do not like Spell Pierce again in Arcanist. I would also play Max Arcanist. I think it's just like foolish not to because it's like the best card in the format.
Yeah, I don't think I've actually played this list. I think it was just a list I copied. I think the list I played did play for Arcanist
I
when
would
I
play four Arcanist, one Tarmogoyf, two Hooting Mandrills. I think personally,
okay.
and I would play yeah
The,
at least a second Preordain, if not a third, depending on how dirtily you want to be. I would probably play three Preordains and a second Chain Lightning personally.
I don't think I have the second chain lightning, but I can probably just get that real quick.
Well, did okay. What's probably a better use of our time is just talking about this deck, how it should be constructed, and how it should be played before doing all of that. Because I think it's a
Okay.
waste of time for you to build the deck. We can just discuss deck. Like, I'll tell you what I would do and why. So I would play two Chain Lightnings, four Arcanus, one Goyf, two Mandrills. I think people are not playing enough green threats. And the reason I say that is I think in the mirrors, the most important cards are the green cards. They can't be Power Blast in post board games. Big deal. It's kind of
That'd be
hard to
very
kill them
true.
in post board games besides Submerge. Like Submerge is the answer, right?
Yeah,
And frankly, like I like playing two Chain Lightnings because I think answering opposing Arcanus is so important, and it's good with Arcanus even in your bad matchups because maybe you can just burn them out. You know, just having
yeah,
six bolts plus four Arcanus is a lot of reach.
yeah. I've definitely, I mean, when I played the two leagues, I definitely noticed like how strong having the reach of Bolt was. I think there was a couple games, especially against Death's Shadow, where
Oh
like
yeah,
they had really low life totals, and if I had just drawn like one more Bolt, I would have been able to seal it up.
yeah. And another thing you can do, this is preference, is it's like basically third preordain versus third force of negation. I think nowadays, that's just a personal metagame call. I don't feel strongly either way. Sometimes I'll switch it, from two to three. Either way, it's not that big of a deal. You just have to decide if you would rather have another fawn and with the decks you're expecting.
Yeah.
With regards to sideboard, I think cards like Sylvan Library and Winter Orb are what's the word you kids use? Chalked, washed. Those cards are
Wash.
super chalked slash washed. The truth is, Klothys is so much better than those cards, I think, versus Snow and versus a lot of other decks. I mean, this is not actually universally true, but I feel like I would play two Klothys before touching the first Sylvan Library or Winter Ward personally.
Interesting. I have never actually uh, played a Winter Orb, so I don't
It's
know.
okay. I think the best matchup for Winter Orb is actually Cloud Post, personally.
Hmm.
And that's such a
I've
small
never.
part of the metagame that I wouldn't bother. Plus, you beat the deck by like wastelanding their Cloud Post and circling it about
Yeah,
like 30% of the time.
yeah,
The that matchup is like actually pretty easy to play, but I think people misunderstand what they're supposed to do in it. I would play three submerges. I think a nod to the mirror, a nod to like Maverick style decks, like four color loam. Um,
sounds like a lot. Like I feel like there's got to be another piece of removal, magmatic sinkhole.
I don't like magnetic sinkhole. Like, so here's the thing: people already love attacking your graveyard.
That's true.
Playing
Yeah,
sinkhole is just a recipe for getting blown out more by graveyard hate. So
yeah.
I would probably cut the orbs and Sylvan Library. Um, Braid's fine. I think the sweep. I like one blazing volley and one engineered explosives.
Over like Norod.
Um, Probably not over Null Rod. I think those like do slightly different things. Probably over the second Abrade.
Makes sense.
And this is pretty close to what I would register in a tournament, frankly, like now. Um, so let me explain a bunch of what's going on. Uh, the ninth blue fetch should actually be a Wooded Foothills for corner case scenarios. So the third Misty is supposed to be a Foothills. That actually came up for me at the GP Atlanta that I top aided. That I split my fetches because someone like just tried to maniac needle one of my fetches. Like people do this. Like I don't think they should, but they do. You know.
Yeah.
And this like Foothills fetches every land in the deck.
I think, yeah. I mean, obviously, if you fetch a blue land and then play foothills, it's a pretty big tell as to what deck you are. But I guess with rug being such a big percentage, I guess you don't really.
I was about to say if you Delta for Trop and play Preordain, I'm assuming you're Rug Delver. I don't
Yeah,
think it's Rug Delver or Omnitel with an awkward mana draw.
yeah.
There's those are the options. Obviously, that's not a lock because it could be something else. Um, and let's discuss the sideboard and why I feel it should be this way. I believe if you're playing a tournament, like a serious tournament, not just leagues, the deck you're most likely to play against is probably Rug Delver, right?
Yeah.
So the way I sideboard and the way I approach the matchup is I want to be able to answer their big fat like Tarmogoyf or Mandrills. Submerge is the most reliable way to do that. And blasts are good too because they trade one for one and like they kill Flip Delver, they kill Oko. Um, and I think the cards that suck are Force of Negation and Oko on the draw. And let me explain the Oko on the draw thing. Oko on the draw, I think, is a huge liability unless you have the board stable and you can afford to play around a blast. But that's a
And
lot to ask for in a on the draw post board game, right?
yeah, and playing around days.
Right. The days thing is always going to be true even if you're on the play.
Well, I think
I
it's especially true with 3 mana
Yeah,
threat.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's why I think a lot of the time 3 mana threats are not even really that good in these mirrors because everyone gets wastelanded a lot. Uh, you don't know whether or not you can play around days, and it dying to like
Hello,
hello, can you hear me?
hello. Yeah, you cut out for a second.
Okay, how about now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
It dying to a daze or pyroblast, I think is just too much. Like I think it makes it a huge liability a lot of the time on the draw.
Yeah,
Personally, uh, I know a lot of people don't agree with me, but that's how I would play it because it just makes it easier to play. And honestly, making your deck easier to play is underrated. I think. I'm not even
I'm
joking. Like people want to do these like doomsday five head, try to kill your opponent with 5 dimensional chess maneuvers. I'm just like, all right, I'm just going to play my creatures and attack you. Oh, you're dead? Sweet, that's still 3 match points for me. Like you don't win, you don't get more match points by being more clever than your opponent.
yeah, that
Um,
definitely true.
so that's how I would approach the mirrors. I think on the draw, I would shave. Yeah, I would shave the Okos and two Force of Negations and maybe like a Force of Will because it's kind of awkward to get it dazed. And on the play, I would actually shave even more Force of Wills and probably leave the Okos.
What are you like even forcing in this matchup besides Oko?
Again, it's a tactical card. What actually happens a lot of the time is you might be like you might get into a board state where you can't actually answer an Arcanist except for forcing it, so you just force it, you know?
Yeah,
Or you
that feels
can't.
really bad.
I agree, it seems bad, but it's just a safety valve. I don't have a plan for it. I try not to cast it unless if I absolutely have to in those mirrors. Like I'll just let a turn one Delver go with a Forcible in my hand a lot of the time.
Yeah, I think yeah, forcing Turtle and Delver is definitely not something I would do super often. So actually, this might just be because of how the removal lines up in the Grixis deck. But when I played against the I think I played against over 3 times with Grixis.
Mm-hmm.
I actually didn't really like bringing in all 3 Pyroblasts or Red Blast effects. I felt like they were just like trading one for one off of. I mean, most of the time you're going to trade off of cantrips or Delver, and I just don't think that's very powerful.
Versus Rug.
Yeah, I
Uh, I think that's a flawed way to think about it. Probably. The thing is, like, the cantrips are pretty important, and killing an Oko or killing a Flip Delver is important. You have to save your bullets for Arcanist, essentially.
yeah.
So basically, it. This might sound weird. I sort of think these mirrors are closer to Jun mirrors, if anything else, where you need to line up all of your interaction correctly. And in order to do that, you need to have enough of it. So blasts are just an extra layer of protection.
So how would you build the sideboard differently if I were to like pretty much only play leagues?
I would still like the sideboard. Actually, I think it's very versatile. Like, I think people sort of focus on too much of like, oh, the metagame's going to be all of one deck, and reality is you don't know what you're going to play against. This is a very well-rounded sideboard. Besides it being maybe one heavy on submerge,
Yeah,
but
I'm
I
definitely
like submerge versus elves and maverick, four color loam, like all of those decks, and those are like decks you could play against in a league. You know.
yeah. And not having like a real answer to Goit and Mandrills is, I mean, besides Submerge, I don't know. That just
Did
feels
no.
weird.
Did I don't think you understand. Submerge is actually slaughter pact.
Yeah, I mean, I
But
know like if they fetch or whatever, or like if they just emptied their graveyard for Mandrills, like it's really hard for them to replay it. Or if they
well,
fetch,
also you can just wait until their draw step and submerge it, right?
yeah,
I mean, like I think that card is actually really hard to play with, and people don't realize it. Like I've been submerged so many times where it didn't actually do anything, and I've submerged so many people, and they're like, "Oh my god, your submerge was so backbreaking." What you can also do is you can stack submerges to choose which order they draw the creatures in.
hmm,
I'm just saying I think that card is extremely powerful and like it's actually kind of messed up that it exists. Like it probably shouldn't exist as a magic card.
that's a fair point. And so, can you explain this engineered explosives to me a little bit more?
So
Like,
that's a Daniel Gottschall special, but I think he's actually correct about it. There's just a bunch of matchups where it's nice to have something that can kill all of the Chalice of the Voids, like all two CMC cards, or stuff like that, or like Goblin tokens, or like elves. I think it's just super powerful. It and Blazing Valley sort of occupy the same spot, but when you count in the fact that you could like wipe out a bunch of Aether Vials or something like that, I think it makes it really powerful. Um,
that's
I like Blazing Volley more than Rough Tumble because I've had this situation come up a lot where if you cast Rough, it doesn't mean you're actually allowed to attack. And Blazing Volley does the same thing if you have Arcanist out. Plus, you can split it up versus a deck like Elves or Goblins, where it's actually better to deal one damage over two different turns because it wipes their board twice.
right. That's actually a really good point. And so, yeah. What about Oof versus Rod?
That's more defensible. I saw Bryant played Oof. Null is a little bit safer versus like suppose you're playing against Death and Taxes where you want to Null Rod them because it kills all of their vials as well. I mean, having Null Rod and explosives in your deck at the same time is a little bit of a non-boat, but I think it's fine. I would still do it. Um, I think versus specifically like green white slash those style of decks that have maybe Aether Vial and removal for your creatures, Null Rod's slightly better. And versus like um Tess or Storm, it's probably about the same. They have to decay it before they kill you, no matter what, right?
Yeah,
I guess their oof might be slightly better because it can put pressure on, but on the flip side is they can Burning Wish for Grape Shot to kill it, right?
yeah, definitely.
So I don't think it's clear. I think you can just play whichever one you want. I would probably play Rod, but I think it's close.
All right, well, thank you for all the help.
All right. So assume you have to get going.
Yeah,
All right. I guess since you have to go now, just whenever you get back, can you PayPal me at the appropriate place for 1.5 hours?
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. I will post this video probably in a day or two. It's not going to have a lot formatted on it. It's probably just going to be straight up. If you still want me to save a copy to Google Drive, let me know. I will. If the YouTube is good enough for you, then that's fine.
I think YouTube is fine.
Okay, sweet. Yep. Thanks. If you want to schedule another one, let me know. I'm around. You know where to find me. And you know, ship that follow on Twitter, boyo. I need the clout.
Will do. Thank you.
All right, no problem. I'll see you, bud.
See ya.